Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been a long time no see. So I saw Sinners 4 times in theaters, which is a record. That's a record for me. The last movie I saw that many times in theaters was actually a couple of years ago. I saw The Book of Clarence 4 times in theaters also, which is a great movie. Highly recommend. If anybody's interested in commentary from me about that movie, let me know in the comments. And then before that, the last movie I saw that many times or more in theaters was the OG Space Jam, 1996, baby. I saw that 6 times in theaters. So just lets you know my taste, what kind of gal I am. So clearly I liked the movie, but one of the things that I like the most about it is how much everyone is talking about it. I love that I'm not the only person who saw it 4 times or more in theaters. I love that people are going to see it again and again. I love the conversations that are being had around it, that we're talking about things like cultural appropriation and culture vultures and artistry and musicianship and even beauty standards. I've heard some conversations around different beauty standards and comparing different characters to one another and why we think certain characters were other characters' moms. But I honestly didn't think that I would be adding my voice to all of this conversation. There's been so much that I thought surely everything has been talked about. But I did find myself missing a few things. So I decided to dust off ye old microphone and come on here and make another video. So here we are. So spoiler alert, if you have not guessed by now, I'm gonna be talking about the movie Sinners. If you haven't seen the movie yet, what have you been doing? Like, seriously, I'm worried about you. Should I call someone? Is there something going on? Do you want to talk? If you keep going and you haven't seen it and something gets spoiled, I can't be responsible. At this point, this is my invitation to enter, so I can't help you. So one of the taglines to the movie is "We're all sinners," which I think is beautifully illustrated in the film because all of the characters do good and bad things for a variety of reasons. I don't think any of them are a clear example of like a good person or a bad person. And I think it's funny because a lot of the commentary I've seen has really tried to label and box characters as good or bad. Just a lot of judgment. It's been a lot of judgment. And there's a saying about judgment, is there not? About rocks. Rocks and houses. Don't throw rocks, I think. Or like, if you do have a rock, don't throw a rock at someone who doesn't have a rock. Have a rock? What? You guys know what I'm talking about. Don't throw rocks. If you have a rock, if you don't have a rock, what are rocks is what I'm saying. Judgment may have been what created the Smokestack Twins in the first place. So the Smokestack Twins are twin brothers, Elijah and Elias Moore, who are, when the movie begins, coming home from Chicago, where they've been doing all types of gangster stuff with Al Capone. But their reputation as gangsters didn't just start after they left Clarksdale when they got to Chicago. They kind of had been doing it back home. We also find out later that the twins grew up in an abusive home. When Sammy tries to confide in Smoke that he wants to leave his life as a sharecropper and go pursue his musical dreams, Smoke tells him that he and Stock basically tried to do the same thing when they were younger. When they left home, they tried to find the Black-owned town of Mound Bayou, which is a real town and a historical landmark. In a 2017 NPR article about the present-day state of the town of Mound Bayou, Rolando Hertz, who is the director for the Center of Culture at Delta State University, said about the founder and the community of Mound Bayou that they wanted the best of the best. They wanted the most highly educated people who were entrepreneurial, who are going to come in and contribute something to making this community even more competitive, even better. Mount Bayou is the perfect place for the Smokestack twins. I mean, ambitious and entrepreneurial are two words I would absolutely use to describe them. But unfortunately, when they got to the town, the mayor rejected them. Not because of their own reputation, which I assume they wouldn't have built quite yet, but because of their father's reputation. The mayor felt that the twins' father was so evil that there was no way that that evil had not been passed down to them, like some sort of ancestral curse. And in a way, by passing judgment and rejecting them, he kind of brought that curse to life, because instead of having the life that they wanted in Mount Bayou, they were forced to live a different life, which just so happened to end up being a life of crime. Also, ironically, the twins' father kind of ends up being the one who saves Sammy in the end. Not only just from the vampires, but from a life where he would be unfulfilled. And he does all of this through his guitar. Throughout the movie, we see what Smoke and Stack are capable of under the wrong influences. We see how creative they are, their ingenuity, their ability to bring a group of people together under a very short amount of time for a shared goal. Imagine what they could have accomplished in Mount Bayou. Possibilities are endless. But unfortunately, because they were judged as inherent sinners, they then see themselves as inherent sinners and go on to live a life of crime that they're pretty successful at, but are unfortunately not free, and spend the rest of their lives trying to buy the freedom that they so desperately desire. Money is used as a motivating factor for a lot of the characters in the movie, and it also gives us a little peek into some of the characters' values and beliefs. For example, we see Smoke teaching that kid how to negotiate right before he goes in and negotiates with the Chows. We see Stack tipping some of the musicians at the train station before he even gets to Delta Slim. We see the Chows negotiating. We see them ask if there's going to be gambling at the Juke. Similarly to the twins, Remick uses money to gain access into spaces that he wants to occupy. The twins use the money that they probably stole to buy the mill from the KKK. They transfer it from white ownership to black ownership. They want to occupy that space, so they buy their way into it. Remick uses gold not only to buy his way into spaces like Burton Jones' house or the Juke, but also to gain or buy the trust of his victims. It's also clear in the movie that some money has more value over others. Smoke belittles Annie's money and tries to exchange money with her, to which she is very against and says that Smoke's money is blood money and she wants nothing to do with it. And Smoke also belittles the plantation script used by the sharecroppers in the Juke, which Stack and Annie try to explain to him that if they want the Juke to be successful, they need the people in the community to feel like they're welcome. And rejecting the money that the people in the community use is not going to do that. You could also argue that the Smokestack twins are no longer a part of the town, because they've been gone for 7 years and they really just show back up to profit off the community that's there and to potentially lay low from robbing 2 different mobs in Chicago. And the same could honestly be said for Mary, who shows back up in town again from Arkansas, I believe, and is really only there for her mother's funeral. And the only reason she stays is because she happens to see Stack. Similar to the Chows, Mary has the option to float in between 2 different communities. Despite her being 1/8 Black, it's difficult to say that she is definitively a part of the Black community in that town, because she has the option to pass as white. And as far as we as an audience know, that's kind of what she's been doing up until the moment she gets back to Clarksdale. It's clear that her presence in this town is a danger, not only for the people in the town, but for herself, which Stack points out multiple times. He says, if the wrong folks see you, it could be catastrophic, not just for her, but for everyone. And ultimately, that's exactly what happens. Even if the wrong people are not exactly the people that Stack had in mind, that's still exactly what happens. It's this lack of self-awareness and her overconfidence in an assumed power and being able to pass that ends up being the beginning of the end for everyone. That and her need to prove her worth and belonging to Stack. I think Mary believes that if she can somehow use her power and being able to pass to help the community, to help the twins, then that will somehow bring her the sense of belonging that she seems to be craving. And it's this lack of belonging that I think Remick is able to spot immediately and exploit easily without Mary really realizing at all what's happening. Mary is the perfect pawn for Remick to use to infiltrate the Juke. And I think they understand each other in a way because they're both out of place and they're both looking for belonging. And I think they both believe that they can have it if they can just have a particular set of circumstances come to pass. I think Mary believes that she can just ignore what's happening. She can somehow find belonging, and Remick believes if he can somehow just get rid of what's happening and create this new thing, then he'll have his belonging. So when Mary escapes, she becomes the new Remick. She's the new head of the vampires, and it looks like it's just her and Stack, which means that whatever Mary is feeling, whatever she wants, whatever she needs, Stack is going to get those things for her because those wants and needs and feelings are also going to be his own. They're sharing that same hive mind. They're literally an enmeshed couple. There's no more individuality for them anymore. They are joined together for all of eternity, which adds so much more weight to Stack saying that the last day he was free was that night at the Juke right before he got turned. Even though he and Mary are now able to be in public together and they don't have to hide the fact that they're together, he still does not feel completely free. And if the vampires are meant to be this metaphor for culture vultures, if they're meant to be a symbol of cultural appropriation, then what does it mean that Mary is now the new HVIC? Why doesn't Stack feel free exactly? I mean, he was also advocating for this lifestyle along with Mary. He had the vision, you know? So what changed in all the time that they were together to make him feel that this was not freedom? I think this mid-credit scene is so powerful. It really left a huge impact on me, and I was thinking about it for days and days and days after I saw the movie the first time. And I'm sure it can be interpreted all kinds of different ways, but I think what's more interesting than getting the exact meaning right is more so the fact that it made me self-reflect on my own experience as a Black American, and what my relationship to freedom was, or, you know, lack thereof. And while I'm not a Mary, I'm not white passing, clearly. I have code switched. I have code switched to fit into white spaces, and I've code switched to fit into Black spaces. And there are times that I've felt that I don't fit into white spaces, and there are times where I felt I don't fit into Black spaces. And this feeling of a lack of belonging and this feeling of a lack of freedom, and ultimately changing oneself to be able to fit in, a lack of authenticity, I think is the best way to say that, is really personal. And I think feeling like you cannot be your authentic self is pretty close to a vampiric experience. You are staying away from the sun. You're not shining your light. And you're feeding off other people's essences. Your essences. Ooh, that's a hard word. You're feeding off other people's essences. You're trying to get a vibe of how to exist from the people around you. And in a way, you're drowning out your own existence because you can't be yourself. So again, that mid-credit scene really drove it home for me. It really makes Sammy's decision to leave his home and become a professional musician like he always wanted to do a really powerful ending. everyone in this movie is looking for freedom. They're looking for belonging. And they're doing so by trying to force themselves into situations, trying to prove themselves, trying to earn and do enough, trying to right wrongs, force other people to believe things they believe or feel things that they're feeling, show power through different various ways. And Sammy finds freedom by creating something, by creating a space for himself to just be the things that he wants to be. And he does so without forcing anyone else to bend to his will or his way of life. He just goes out and creates. And he's not corrupted by Remick, and he's not corrupted by his father and his opinions, and he's not corrupted by Smoke and his threats. He just goes out and makes something for himself to truly be at home in, and to truly share his talents and his gifts for whoever wants to experience them, where he can honestly have true freedom. That's it. That's all I have to say. Sinners was a wild ride for me. I saw it 4 times in theaters. I will say it again. As of this recording, I've seen it at least 6 times. Maybe I'll watch it again tonight. I'm just kidding. Or am I? I loved it. I thought it was great. I think the amount of care and detail and research that was put into this movie is just absolutely amazing. I love a well-researched film, and I think my favorite thing about this movie is the fact that it was an original concept, a new story, because I don't know about you, but I don't need to see Shrek 5000 as much as I love Shrek. Please don't come on here and yell at me about Shrek. I love Shrek, but I'm just saying we need new stories, and it was very refreshing to see this one. And I hope it opens the door for more new stories to come out. If you have not seen Sinners, why are you here? What are you doing? I told you in the beginning, don't go to the end if you haven't seen the movie. It's spoiled. It's so many things have been spoiled for you. I can't help you. I don't know what to say. If you have seen Sinners, I'm going to say watch it again, because, you know, you might see something with new eyes. I feel like every time I watch this movie, you know, I have a different perspective on it. There's just so many layers to it, and I love it. Chef's kiss. If you've made it to the end, thank you for watching another one of my videos. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one.